anybody not downloaded it yet? That's awesome. Good job, guys. All right, so we're going to start off by creating a new project. These are the instructions. I put them on the slideshow as a reference, but I'll be showing you guys how to do everything along the way. And then these are the files that I'm going to go over here, so let's just go right to it. So if you open Android Studio for the first time, sorry, get that out of there. This is what it's going to look like. Give it a second to open up. Looks like it's trying to load my last project. But basically, when you'll get a big window, and in the first option you can pick is create a new project. Is everybody seeing that? Okay, go ahead and click that. And then basically, oh yeah, here it is. All right, so this is just going to be your application name. So you can name it anything you want. I'll stick with my application. I have a lot of different ones in my application, so I'll put 5 there. Then company domain is just going to be the package level. So like, let's say you published your app to the Google Play Store. Every single app needs to have a unique package name. That way it can be distinguished between all the different apps in the App Store. So this is something that you could name yourself, and I'll let you know if it's going to pass or not. But usually it just auto-populates it for you, so you can go ahead and just leave it the way it is. And then click Next. So some of the options here is if you were going to be developing for other Android platforms like Android Wear or TV or anything like that. We're going to do tablet and phone today. Android has a number of different API levels. So the one we're going to be developing for is API 15. And the reason why we're not doing the latest API is just because I don't know what kind of phones you guys have in the classroom, or this is just the best way for you to target the most amount of people in your app. According to here, it says that 97% of them, people in the Android store are on API 15, or higher. So that's the best place to target your app. So go ahead and hit Next, and then we're going to start off with an empty activity. And hit Next again. And then you can name your activity. So we're going to stick with main activity. That's what I'm going to be referring to it as, so I would suggest leaving it like that. But in the future, you can name your activities differently, and we'll be making another one today as well, and I'll name it as well. So now it's going to generate the project.
What's an activity?
An activity is basically like a view, right? So like, think about whenever you have open up an app and you can go between different views, like Facebook, for instance, if you want to like go between your friend request screen or like your news feed and stuff like that. And Android, they call the equivalent of activity is basically a view. So when you have your project fully created, it's going to generate a whole Android package for you with a lot of different files involved. A lot of them you don't really need to look at, but we're going to go over some of the most important key ones here. So while that's loading it up, go back to the PowerPoint. So these are the main files we're going to be looking at. We have main activity, which is the one that we just created. That's going to be our main view. And then we're going to have activity main.xml, which you're going to, and all the file paths are there as well. And then that's going to be basically where we're going to build the user interface, right? So where the user interacts with all the buttons and all the sliders and the loading bars and all that stuff, that's where you make that stuff. The manifest file is just going to check, like it says, for fundamental characteristics. If you want to change the API level you're targeting, so if you want to make something for the very most brand new version of Android, that'd be where you'd be working in. You'd be changing some settings in there to do that. And then Gradle scripts, it's important, but we're not going to be covering it. It's out of the scope of a beginner lecture. but just know that it handles dependency management. So if your app depends on anything else, Gradle is going to be involved. And then strings.xml we're going to be going over later in detail. So to run the app, we're going to be doing it on an emulator on the screen. If you have your phone and a cable, it'll be faster if you want to plug your phone into your computer to launch your app. It's up to you how you guys want to do it. People will be going around the classroom if you have any questions about this, because sometimes it can take a little bit to download an emulator. It might be a little bit confusing, but we'll be going over the emulator in the demo today. So these are the instructions to run the emulator. So you want to, there's a little icon right here. You can click on that guy if you want to start an emulator, or like I said before, you can plug in your phone. So let's start looking at this here. So here, like I said, this was the project that it generated for us. It opens it up straight to main activity for us. But if it doesn't, you see the file path up here on my screen. Can you guys all see, or should I zoom in, or you guys good? Okay. So main activity is over here. If you have your app folder open, this is where all the files I was talking about are located. So you want to go in here. You have res, the res folder, which res is short for resources. It handles all the resources for your application. So this is going to be the layout folder right here, and this is where you're going to see that Gui Builder. So you see how like your application's already over here. So let's go over running it. So you click the play button up in the top here. If you click play button for the first time and you don't have your phone connected in, you might get a screen with a blue button that says create a virtual device. Basically, I have the Nexus 6 emulator already running on my computer, but what you would do if you didn't have anything on here is click create a new device, and then pick the phone that you want to run on. Android Studio has a number of different phones that you can default to run your application on. I chose Nexus 6 for the demo. Just be aware that it's going to take some time to download the emulator, so preferably if you have your phone and can connect it, that would be good. But yeah, so you can run your application on all different kinds, and it even has TV and Wear emulators as well. So then once you end up getting it downloaded, you just want to hit OK. Or when you hit run again, up here, the play button, you'll see that once you have an emulator fully installed and ready to go, you'll see it appear on the list here. So you can just click Nexus 6, and then it says API 24 because that's the API that it's running on. However, it could run anything that API 15 can, which is what we're developing in. Let's hit OK, and it's going to start trying to run the application. So, are there any questions up to this point while we get the application emulator running? Anybody have any questions? Anybody having trouble downloading their emulator? Anybody want to go? If you come up with a pop-up on your phone, it says activate debugging mode. Say yes, and then also you may need to. It may prompt you to download drivers depending on your platform or your computer. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. When I use a Galaxy S5 and my computer I don't need any drivers. So it just depends on your device. Yes? Yeah, so, okay, so his question was how do you select your phone? So when you go up and did you hit play? Yeah, so when you hit play, you're going to come up with a list of all the emulators or phones that are plugged into your computer, and you would create a new virtual device from there. So the thing about emulators when you're developing, typically when you're programming in your house, what I do is I just plug my phone in and use it like that. It's a lot faster. But Android Studio does take always a few minutes to run or something like that, so you gotta give it some time.
It's really only when you first launch an emulator that
Yeah. The more you use it, the faster it gets.
yeah, don't close it.
Yeah, whatever you do. When you run the application on your emulator on your phone, it should open up automatically with the app, so it's loading right now. You have a question? Yeah, so I chose Nexus 6 for the demo. You can choose whatever phone you want. But if you want to follow along, where I chose Nexus 6. So if you see, remember I named my application up here. So whatever you put for the My Application field is going to come up here. And then you also have Hello World. So that's what the project already comes generated with. And so we're going to go ahead and start modifying that now.
Do you have a general question or specific? Oh, never mind. I'll figure it out.
Okay, so the coolest part about developing on mobile is that you get instant gratification when you develop user interfaces, right? So today we're going to be making our first user interface. So two things to know about is Android categorizes user interface components in two different categories. One's going to be view group, and that's basically going to be containers that contain the different components like buttons, sliders, loading bars, anything like that. Is the view group's going to be a container where those items can be held, right? And then a view is simply just a view category is basically a category where things like buttons and stuff fall under. So just the little widgets that you would see on your phone to interact with your application. So this is kind of like a little graphical representation. So you see, you have view group, so that would be like a container that holds multiple. This could be a button, this could be a slider, that could be anything. So, and then you can have a view group that has another view group within it, and you can nest different buttons and things like that inside of it.
Wow, it's a design pattern.
Oh yeah, I know. So today we're going to be working with a linear layout, and basically, if you want to look at some of the other different kind of layouts you have, I put a link in the presentation that I'll be posting later. But this is what a linear layout looks like. Right here. So things are going to be organized similarly like this. All right, so let's go ahead and make that linear layout now. So we want to go to that Gui Builder area that I told you guys about earlier. Does anybody remember what that file was called? There you go, activitymain.xml. Sometimes your project will open it up with it right here, but if it doesn't, you can go right here down to the res folder. Under layout, you'll find activitymain.xml. Right, so let's go there. So this is going to be your layout editor. And there's two different modes that you can be working with. You can have the text mode, where you can basically manipulate the XML code that's behind the GUI, or you can do like a drag and drop kind of feel here. So you see here you have like different buttons, toggle buttons, checkboxes, all different kinds of stuff, right? So we're gonna go here. So it populates something here, a relative layout, but we're gonna be working with a linear layout just for simplicity purposes. So let's go ahead and put a linear layout in here. So go to the text view right here inside of your Android application. Get rid of everything within the relative layout tags, and we'll start with a linear layout. Don't do that. Don't want to. Linear layout. And then when you close the bracket, automatically and then you want to include some other stuff here. This is all going to be default, what you have to do anytime you do a linear layout. So let's make this a little bit easier. So you guys should just copy paste the starter code for a linear layout right here. I'm going to show you guys where to go. I'll open your web browser and go to developer.xml. develop.android.com, because there's a little bit of a starter code here. If you go to develop and then training, under building your first app, you want to go to user interface, and then linear layouts right here. So this is what I was about to type, but it'd probably be easier for you guys to just copy paste it. So that link again is developer.android.com. We're going to be referring to it a couple times throughout the presentation. But yeah, so go to developer.android.com, training, building your first app, and then building a user interface. And then the very first section is going to be create a linear layout. You just copy it and we'll put it over into the application. Just like that. So now our application has a linear layout. And we'll see a little bit more about the significance behind that later as we begin to add different components. So now that we have our layout ready, let me make a note that layout was a view group. So in that slide earlier I was telling you guys about, those black boxes, layout would be considered a view group component. And now we want to add view components to it. So we're going to be adding a text field. So the instructions are in step 1 here. You can add it either in the design view or the text view, either one. I'll show you guys both. And then there's inside the XML that's generated for a text field, there's key components that we're going to go over. And then we also have to go over string resources, so I'll show you guys that inside the actual Android app. But there's a link down here if you want to read a little bit more about them as well. So inside of your GUI Builder, you just can go to Design. Trying to get a little bit closer for you guys to see. Okay, so that's going to be the header for your application. So we're trying to look at a text field. Text field. So add it here. So edit text. It's an edit text.
Yeah, but it's the string resource.
Yeah, so we're going to go over the string resource now. But once you have that in there, this should generate if you drag and drop it in there, or you can just type this out yourself, either way. But basically, every text field is going to have an ID that you can use to reference it in your application uniquely. So if you want to change the value of it in your program when you're coding it, or you want to do anything like that, you would just refer to the ID here. So we called it edit message, and then it's going to give you a layout width and a layout height, basically saying that like when you're typing in it, you can wrap the content as it continues to grow too large for the screen, and that happens all the time in normal applications. So it sets it for you. So you notice here that I have the hint attribute set to this value. So the hint is basically right here. If you zoom in, you'll see this gray text. So sort of like whenever you're signing up for something and and you're putting in your email address or something, it says email. So it lets you know what you have to type in physically into the text box. So we can change that to anything we want to. So one of the rules of thumb for developing applications within Android is if a text field is always going to contain the same word in it, right? So like if you want to put email for a sign-in app, you don't have to actually write that in your application. You just put it as a string resource because it's going to statically stay the same no matter what. So it's never going to change. So any text that's never going to change, you want to keep it as a string resource.
And also another like good use case for that is if you're going to use that same string in multiple places. And so then if you want to like change it, you just have to change it in the one file.
Exactly, yeah. That's another great point. What Sergio brought up was that if you're going to be using that string in many different areas, you could just type it out once, that we don't have to keep typing it out over and over whenever you add it somewhere else. So it's a great way to just reference a string that you have there. So to access your string.xml file where you have your string resources, you have a question?
Yeah, I'm not seeing the @string edit message, and I added it into code online. I'm not sure if I'm missing something.
What do you see here? If you go to the text view,
Yeah, that's exactly what I see in mine.
do you have this component?
Yes.
Try putting in just a regular value.
Yeah, if you,
Just a hard-coded string. Just
Yeah.
type in, like,
so alternatively you can say hello right here, and it will appear in your application right here. But yeah, we don't want to do that.
it even tells you right there in the bottom left-hand corner.
Yeah. Don't do this. Put it as a string resource. All right, so we're going to put that back. Hit that. Yeah, can somebody go help him? It says. All right, so if anybody has any questions, good time to raise your hand and get somebody to come help you out. Question? You just need help on your computer? All right, so we're gonna move forward a little bit now. So to get to the string resources, what you can do is go into your app folder and go into the res folder, and then you're going to see another folder called values. Open up values and go to strings.xml. So what we want to do is we want to define a string name here. And basically we can do this. String name is equal to, and then what do we refer to it as? Edit message. So you want to put the ID of your string here as edit message. And then whatever you want to appear in your text field, you just put here. Welcome to my application. So now if you go back to your activity main view right here, you'll see that that error was resolved. And you'll see that in our design view, if you zoom in, welcome to my application. I'm sorry? On the text, in the text view right here, so those are going to be all the attributes that we have here. All right. So for the sake of time, we're going to move forward a little bit. If you guys have questions, feel free to raise your hand and have somebody come to you. If you guys have a regular question without help, let me know and I can answer. To the strings, yeah. So this is the syntax right here. Right. It's going to be string. So open or a less than sign. String space name. So this is going to be the name of your string, how you refer to it in your application. So this is going to be it, and then you can say in between the closing and opening tag, you're going to have the name of your string. That answer your question? How's it going?
So can you change these at like runtime? And it seems like
These are static, so no.
right. So how would you change the hint whenever you want to edit text? You would like change the hint and then like on whatever.
So you don't have to use strings as resources, right? So like,
Or you just use it as a variable.
yes, you would use it normally as a variable or something like that. This is, if you're trying to change strings dynamically, you can make it either point to another string resource that you want to change it to, or you can not use a string resource. So for the sake of performance, it's usually a pretty good idea for static strings that you're not going to be changing or that you don't want anybody to change, leave them as a string resource.
But instead of name being app name,
All right.
so basically you go here. So we're saying, hey, look at the string resources.
So now we're going to add a button.
For a string called edit message.
Okay, so the same way that you can add a text field, you can add a button. We can use the design view of the text view. We did the text view last time, so I'm going to show you guys the design view, how you can drag and drop a button onto your application, and then you can run it. So to add a button, anything user interface related, remember, is going to be your activity main. Right, so you go here, go to design, and you see here we have button, right? All you gotta do is click and drag it, right here. Now you have a button in your application. So if you notice, right here, it generated all the XML for you. It gave us some pre-filled out attributes, including the text that's going to be in the button. So if you want to change that, you can do it right here. Otherwise, you're going to see what it looks like as I'm running it right here. So you have it here. You got your button, but it doesn't do anything yet. So we'll be covering today how to make your button do something. And if you see here earlier, we had that text field. The keyboard pops up just like it would on a phone. And you can say anything. You can type on your keyboard. That's my name. You can put your name. Yeah, but so that's what we've done so far. So now we have basically the user interface for our application that we're going to make today, right? So what we're going to do, the goal of the end of the lesson today is we're going to have a text field. We're going to write some text into it. We're going to click a button, and it's going to launch a new activity, another view that's going to display the contents of what you typed in the original view, okay? So you see there responding to button clicks. We're going to go over building intents. And I'll talk about that a little bit more. We're going to create another activity and then display the message that was typed by the user. So anything that the user types is what's going to be displayed. So to respond to a button, when you generate the XML for a button by dragging it from the design view, you can add an attribute in the XML called onClick. And what you're going to do there is define a function in your code that will run whenever the user clicks a button. So if you want to, this is normally how it's done in a lot of different mobile and web application areas. All you got to do is just make the onClick function, and we're going to define what it's going to do when the user clicks inside that block of code. So I'll show you guys that in a demo. So there's a format, criteria, and we'll be going over that as well for the onClick function. Does anybody have questions about the button that we created last time? Yeah.
So pretty much you talking about the onClick.
Yeah.
That's just like a piece of code that runs when you press the button, right?
Right.
Okay.
We haven't defined it yet, so you guys will be able to see what I'm talking about as we make it. Yes.
Is that like a callback or an event?
It handles it like an event. Exactly, yeah. And if you're thinking like JavaScript, it's sort of like callback. Any other questions? We haven't done anything yet, right? So we're still at the position where it's a static text field and a static button, right? We haven't made it do anything yet or anything. So we're going to go ahead and start adding that stuff in there now. So in here, we're going to add something to our button. This is going to be the syntax for, you see how they all have a common syntax? You always start with Android, and you want to say on, click. Then we're going to write a reference name that we're going to define in our main activity. So whenever somebody clicks our button now, it's going to try to run the code referenced to by the name send message. So I know you guys said earlier you guys haven't gone over functions in Java. So basically all we're going to do is we're going to define an area in our code that's going to run and it's going to be pointed to by the name send message, right? So anytime that you click the button, it's going to look in your code for somewhere that we're going to define the send message function, and it's going to run all the code that's inside of there. So let's go ahead and start defining that. So switch over to your main activity view. So if you don't have it up here, remember that it's going to be in your app folder under Java, and then under the first package file here, com.example, and then you can see your main activity right here. So this is going to be the syntax to declare a function that's going to be respond to your button clicking. So just do public void send message view. So you'll get an error right here. Yeah. So right here is what we just wrote. This is all that we added. So to get rid of that error right here, I use a keyboard shortcut, and I'll show you. You got to have at the top of your code import Android view dot capital letter V view. So what this function is saying, it's going to take an argument, the view, right? So remember that the user is going to click a button inside of a view. So when this function runs, it needs to know what view the user clicked the button inside of. Remember, applications can have many, many different views. You want to make sure that when you click this function, or when this function runs, it knows what view that you're referring to. So right now we only have one view, which is main activity, activity main right here. So when the function is called, right at this point, send message, it's going to pass this view, entire thing right here, and let it know that, hey, this is the view, my main activity or activity main that the user clicked the button on. So does anybody have any questions on that concept? Yes. Yeah, sure. It's going to be at the top. So sometimes it minimizes here. Just click the plus button there, and you can add it here.
Now, is it case sensitive? Does that matter?
Yes, it is. So make sure that the second view is a capital letter V as in violet.
You can also autocorrect anything you want to import.
Yeah, so
Just complete it. It'll complete it for you.
yeah, so as you're typing it, you see here it gives you a list. So if you type in the capital letter V, scroll down one, and hit enter, it says view. So Android does a good job while trying to help you out with whenever you're trying to import a package, because that can get confusing sometimes. so we're going to add some code behind this button now. So everyone go ahead and go over to the message. I'll zoom in here. This is where we're focusing on right now, right on this method, or this function, sorry. So we're going to declare something called an intent. Intent is equal to new intent. I'm going to explain what this code means in a second after we're done typing it. All right, so we got some errors here because we don't have the right package imported to use the intent. Yeah, I'm looking for it. It's not showing. There. Yeah, so, sometimes you'll see the little blue thing hover over it, and that's like the package. There you go. Yeah, so Alt-Enter on, and it'll automatically import that package up here. That's what I did earlier for the view, right? So you see up here now, the statement you have to import to use an intent is android.content.intent. So this is the code. This is going to stay red for a while. This is going to be probably the last thing we're going to fix before we run our application. So bear with me. I know it looks ugly, so we can just leave it there for now. And don't forget to add your semicolon. So we're going to go to the second line, then we're going to write. This should seem familiar. Edit text. So that's the same kind of thing that we added to our view earlier, or the user types. All right, so that's going to be our second line. All right, so we have intent. So basically what intent is, it goes over, I guess the best way to explain it is, how do I say this without confusing? So it represents your application's intent to do something, right? So that's what it means. So in our application, we intend to switch the view to another view, right? So that's what we're going to be representing with this object here. Right there, yeah. So what we intend to do is we intend to take the view that we pass in, which we're referring to by this, and then we're going to be taking content from there and putting it into another view, right? So in a few minutes, we're going to make another activity called Displaymessage Activity, right? So we have our main activity, and then we have another one called Displaymessage Activity. So what intent is going to describe, it's going to describe our intent to take data from the view main activity and then put it into the Displaymessage Activity view. So does anybody have any questions about intent or that concept? Everybody get it? Okay. So now we have edit text. It's another area you're going to get. Got to import. Alt-Enter. And then you see up here, it imported the widget edit text. So now it's finding, so when the user clicks the button, it's going to go to our view, and it's going to find it right here. It's going to find the text that somebody puts in there, right? So you're going to run your application, write something, hello, and then it's going to go find it. It's going to go find hello. So now we're going to store the text that it finds in a string variable. All right, so now we're at this point. So there's going to be like 5 or 6 lines. So we're on the third one here. So intent represents our intent as the user to get data from one view and move it to this view that we haven't defined yet. Now we're using an edit text object because remember, that's what we have here. Edit text. We're going to look for that widget in this view and extract the text that's inside of it using the following command. So edit text dot get text dot toString. So if I type hello, my name is Michael inside that field when the application is launched and running, it's going to take hello, my name is Michael and store that into this string variable message. So now it has whatever the user typed inside of this variable. Yes.
Can you scroll up really quick so we can see like the signature of the function? Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Oh, jeez. Can you actually? Oh. I'll do that in a sec. So there's a lot of like concepts we just went over. Make sure to ask anybody going around if you guys don't understand it, or feel free to ask, and I'll repeat the question so everyone can hear it. So that error is supposed to happen. We'll be covering that one too, so don't worry. You don't need to import that module. It thinks that it's something else, so just leave it that way. We could actually just type that to make things easier. Okay. All right, so that's the end of the code for the button pushing. So what this code is going to do, I'll review it. The intent is we're creating an intent object that's going to describe our intent to take this argument's data, which is the view that the user clicked the button on, put it into another view that we haven't defined yet, which we're going to do that next, right here. And then we're going to declare an edit text object that can hold or find the edit text field right here. Right, so this edit text field is the same as right here. So we're declaring a variable that can hold the data that's in here. Right, so the user will type something in there to hold it. Then we're going to make a string variable that's going to hold the content of whatever the user types inside of there. Now, this part's a little bit trickier, but basically the put extra method is just our way of putting the view that we got. So we extracted the message text. So if I say hello, now we're going to store that inside of the intent. And that's what put extra means. Right? So now we have an object that has inside of it, it has the message that the user typed. So they can say anything. So now we have our intent holds that message. And that's all it's doing for all intents and purposes. That's all you need to know. And then remember our second argument here for intent was the activity that we want to start, right? So there's a built-in function that Android gives you called start activity that lets you start another activity, exactly what it sounds like. And then you pass the intent as an argument so that it knows what view to start, right? So this is the view that we're working with. This is the view we want to go to.
Could you show the whole code? Because people are getting stuck because they can't see
Oh, yeah.
all of it. You could close close the console too. You don't need that open.
Or close like the navigator, the file navigator. Make it a little smaller.
There you go.
That better? Yeah, raise your hand if you guys can't see anything. Let me know. Anybody have any questions at this point? We're gonna start handling those errors now. Yes.
I'm just wondering, like, what's the point of putting like the edit text in parentheses after you create the edit text object?
That's a good question. So when you find the view by ID right here, it's not going to return an edit text object. You see here, right there, it's going to go into the view, look for where the edit text box is, but it's not going to return it as an edit text object. And we declared it as an edit text object. So we're casting it to an edit text object. Right, so it's this, think about like if you're changing, the parentheses is just in Java, you're casting one type to another. Right, so we want to return the result as an edit text object. And then once it's an edit text object, it allows us to use this method. That's the motivation behind it. Right, we want to use getText to get the text that the user type, but we need an edit text object to do that. But it doesn't actually return it as an edit text object. So that's the way of going around that. So I'll give you guys a second to catch up there. We're going to start resolving those errors. First error was that we didn't have an activity that we were trying to reference, right? We had Displaymessage Activity, but it's looking for it in our code and it doesn't exist. So we need to add it. So that's what we're going to go ahead and do now. The instructions are here later if you want to reference them, but I'll be demonstrating them for you. Basically, you just got to right click and then add a new activity, and then we'll go in and it creates all the necessary methods that you need for an activity to run. So to add a new activity, you open up your project window here. You have your app folder. Right click on it. New. Activity. Empty activity. And now we're going to go through the process that we did in the beginning when we created our first view, right? So we can name it. So remember that we called it earlier in the error message. Display message activity. And then you can hit finish. So now you see right here in our file manager, it added the display message activity right here. Yes.
We have to import everything for each activity, or is it universal? Like, will we have to import everything else per activity?
So that depends. So remember, if you remember in that diagram I showed you earlier, an activity is like a view group, right? It's an overall view. And then if you remember that, actually let me show you.
If it's within another activity.
Yes,
right?
exactly. Yeah. But these are going to be like two separate activities. So any tools that we're going to be using in here, we need to import them. Yeah. So now we're going to start writing some code again. Intent. Oh, yeah.
Oh, no, that's what you want.
Yeah. No. We want to do it in our onCreate. Leave it isolated a little bit. Intent. So same issue here. We don't have the intent package in here, so just Alt Enter and it imported it for us up here. Get string. And I'll explain this, don't worry. So remember, if you look back over here, we had that the word message in capital letters was red. We're also having that here. So that's another error we're going to cover. So we'll get there, so don't worry about that. So now we're going to instead of adding a text view using the Gui Builder or anything like that, we're just going to programmatically create one right here in our Java code. So to do that, so hit Alt-Enter to get that package in there. Equals new. So we create a new text view, and then we reference the view that it's going to go into. So we say this because remember that this is actually just one big view right here. So this is the equivalent of like a big view. And the text view constructor needs to know what view you're referencing. Because if you just say, I want to create a new text view, it wants you to be more specific and tell you in what view do you want me to create a text view. So we're saying this view, we want in the one we're talking about right now. Yeah. That better? Okay. Okay. So that's all the code you need for this view. So since we started this activity with an intent, we're just going to use this intent to grab it. So we're using from one view to another. It doesn't automatically move all the data from one view to another. We have to go get it, right? So we use get intent to go do that. And then we're going to get the message, right? So if you remember in here, we had put extra, and we're putting the text that the user put in there inside put extra. So here we're just going to retrieve that text saying get string extra, right? So we put a string inside the intent. We retrieve the intent. We get the string from the intent. And now, similar like the other view that we did, we're going to make a text view, and we're going to set the text in that text view equal to the message that the user passed or that the user typed. Then once we have the text view all configured, this code right here, it adds the text view to the layout, or AKA it adds it to the user interface. All right, so does anybody have any questions about that set of code right there? We're about to wrap it up here in a minute. Anybody have any trouble? Yes. Okay. Yeah, can somebody help her? So while you guys catch up. Okay. So we still have one more thing to solve, and then we're going to run it, and we're going to see what it looks like. So we're going to fix that error message we're getting on both of our views. So go back to your main activity. And we're going to add a string right there. Yeah. The activity, this one? Which one? This one?
And go to the code for me.
Yeah.
So does that have an ID on it? It does. Okay. Just want to
Yes. So that's important. Make sure that you have an ID. So to verify that the view that you created has an ID, right? Because we're referencing it right here, right? So if it doesn't have it, that means that Android Studio didn't already do it for you. So all you gotta do is go to its XML and add this line right here. Is anybody having that issue right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Probably a good amount.
Okay.
What did you set string message equal to? Like the all cap message?
Oh yeah. This right here?
Yeah, whenever you define it.
Oh yeah, yeah. So we'll get back to that when everyone catches up. Yeah, that's the last step to get rid of the message. Layout? No problem. Does anybody else need this? Make sure that this is inside activity display message.xml. If this is not in there, the code that we wrote over here will not work because we're calling it right here. Okay, so we're going to move on. If anybody has any questions, let me know. So the very last piece of code we have to add is right here. So if you look right here in your main activity, the very first view that we were working with, it has a package name right here. So we're going to declare a string and just call it what you can call it whatever you what we've been calling it as message so far. You want to make sure you have this line of code in your main activity right before the override, as long as you have it there. So what this line of code is saying is we're declaring a message flag inside of our package. So my package is called com.example.michael.myapplication5. So we're going to declare a message flag right here, and call it com.example.michael.myapplication5.message. So make sure you have everything the same except for the way that your package is named. So com.example. It's probably going to be your name, but make sure that whatever your package says, that's how your string's going to be right here, and then add .message to it. I'm sorry? So so right here we have a flag called message right here. The put extra method requires you to have basically some kind of constant flag that you can set let you know that you're passing a message. Because put extra, basically, an intent can have many different things inside of it. We're using a message, right? So we need to declare that message right here, so that put extra knows that we're going to be sending it a string instead of something else. We can send it objects, we can send everything. But the reason it needs to know that it's a string in particular is because right here, we're saying inside of the extras for that intent, we want to get a string extra. So we're making a message flag for that. So this parameter can change based on what you want to store inside the intent. So sometimes you'll see different Android applications have lots of these declared in the beginning, because if people are putting many different intents in, they need lots of different like flags, depending on what they're putting in there.
If I want to use put extra twice, do I declare two static variables?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
So if I want to send over two separate strings to the intent,
Yeah.
do I create two separate static variables for the object?
Let me see. So his question was, if I want to send two different strings into the intent, do I have to make two different strings? No, because this is just saying, this is like, you would do something like this. Again, we're letting it know that we're sending a message over, or a string, and then you would put the message in here. Like that. So now we're sending the string that the user typed. This is the string that the user typed, and then we can add hello as well if we want to. So that's how you send another string. Yes?
So the message, like the text, is doing.
All right, so
The text, the text that's like the application package.
right, yeah. So right here, you see the package identifier. You're declaring a message flag, right? So message flag is one of the many different flags that a put extra method can work with, right? So if you look in the Android docs, they have lots of different ones. The message flag is a way for you to let the intent know that you're sending in a string, right? So, but it also needs to know for what package it's doing that for, right? So you need to declare the entire package and a message flag if you intend to be passing strings to intents. Does that make sense?
Intents within this package.
Yes.
Can you go back to that activity?
Yes.
So you could be sending strings to other applications.
To other. And that's what your application should do. So this is what we went through, right? So we got everything. That's all the code you guys need. So if you guys have any questions, let me know now. Otherwise, you should be able to hit run, and you should be able to type stuff inside that field, hit the button, and see it appear on the other screen. So. So if you type in, hit the button, and it launches another view with what you typed in on that other view. So passing data between views is a pretty essential, I guess, skill that you need to know how to do, because one of the difficult things is you're going to be writing, you say, I want this view to do one thing, and I want this view to do another thing. Oh, but wait, it relies on some of the data from the other view. So it's very important to learn how to work with intents, and that's why I wanted to cover them today. So does anybody have any questions about that? Is everyone seeing their app run okay? If you guys are getting errors, let us know now while we're here to help. Yes?
It's just not showing up here.
Well, we can have someone to help you afterwards.
Okay.
Okay, cool. So we're pretty much done with